Welcome to Behind the Purchase, a closer look at consumerism. I'm Sebastian.
I'm Frida.
And I'm Julie.
And today we're going to start off with the question, what do you guys think was the most purchased product after 9/11? Julie?
I'm going to say guns.
Sebastian?
I'm going to say fireworks.
Good guesses, but actually the correct answer is American flags. American flag sales skyrocketed about 1,000% after 9/11, and that's just one example of how consumerism changed after the events of 9/11.
As you can guess, on today's episode, we will be diving into consumerism and the effects of major events on consumerism here in America.
Okay. Well, when I think of major events in the U.S., I think of 9/11 because it was such a hugely impactful event for so many people. And I think it was really like the number one drive of like paranoia among Americans, especially since like a lot of people hadn't had like any kind of outside entity come in and like disrupt their daily lives since like the Japanese did back in Pearl Harbor in like World War II. And I think that for a lot of people, like they kind of just internalized that fear and felt the need to just like accumulate things kind of as a way to keep themselves safe.
Yeah, no, definitely. One of the biggest changes was how security became a central theme in marketing and spending. Americans started prioritizing purchases that made them feel safe, whether that was security home systems, insurance, or even big cars like SUVs. And Guller and Demir 2024 discussed how the post-9/11 counterterrorism policies helped shape that public perception of safety, which reinforced that consumerism shift. And there's also that psychological factor that you were talking about, Julie, that how fear and uncertainty shaped those long-term spending habits. People moved toward saving more, being cautious about big purchases, and even how they consumed media, which was quite interesting. And Van der Reer's 2012 discussed how branding and consumer culture responded to 9/11. And prime example of this psychologically is how Americans, right after 9/11, stopped flying. They were too scared. Airlines also upped their security, which after 9/11 fundamentally changed airlines in America in general. Like that was the event that ultimately caused high security in airports. And yeah.
Speaking of which, have you guys ever heard of Midway Airlines?
No. What is that?
Well, you guys really wouldn't. Midway Airlines was the name of two defunct U.S. airlines, one based in Chicago and the other one based in Morrisville. This airline shut down because of 9/11. It went bankrupt, and the insurance companies, who also took a major hit during 9/11, couldn't afford to back this airline. So that's kind of the reason that is the reason you wouldn't hear about Midway Airlines. 9/11 was the big event that broke it down. Speaking of spending, I wanted to talk about patriotic spending. There was a huge surge in supporting American-made products, but there was also a call to action. A large amount of donations and funding was spent to our military. You know, we're the U.S. We're the biggest military power.
Yeah.
Our national security was attacked, and we wanted to fight back. We wanted to show our resilience. We wanted to show that we were a force to be reckoned with.
Exactly.
Yes. So, however, there were fear among the civilians. We felt that the people that we had allowed into America was no longer a safe space. You know, there was a lot of hate and racism, specifically towards Muslim, Syrian Palestinians. And this led to instability, which led to more cautionary and discretionary spending. A lot of people chose to shelter back, you know, secure their homes, ration out groceries. And that reminded me of COVID, you know?
COVID-19, that's pretty recent. We all have firsthand experience through that nationwide pandemic, and I would say COVID-19 is a good example of consumerism in America because it capitalized on people who were at home and had access to the internet and just had all this free time on their hands. And I think during that time, it relates back to 9/11. There was so much fear and uncertainty that people felt that they could find security in buying all of these products that, you know, were part of microtrends and fast fashion, and ultimately played a huge part in ruining the environment. And yeah.
A big thing about COVID was there was also, it preyed on the fear of people. People were in a state of panic. Schools had never seen something like this. They didn't know what to do. And so everybody, went out, bought incredible amounts of toilet paper. That was a very irrational spending / trend that was seen. That's another way that the events have really affected our economy is irrational spending. I know that personally, my grandma went out and bought like every canned good you could possibly buy to store in her basement out of irrational fear. I know that a lot of sanitary products, hand sanitizer, latex gloves, masks, profited hugely. These big old companies made large amounts of money.
Yeah. Let's not even talk about the vaccinations. Those big corporations, Pfizer, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but so much money was given to these healthcare companies, and they gained a lot of money from this.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of like after 9/11 and the way that people rushed to like, sign up to go to like fight in Afghanistan or Iraq.
Yeah, and I would say we're all kind of victims of these, like for example, like during COVID-19, I found myself on TikTok, and through that, I was exposed to a lot of microtrends, and I found myself buying so much clothes that was so unnecessary, and just overall contributed to that mass consumption that was happening. How about you, Julie? Did you buy anything, like splurge on anything crazy during that time?
Oh yeah, I really got into like collecting DVDs of
shoot.
So to bounce off what you said, Beta, the way that TikTok really influenced you during the pandemic, it reminds me a lot of The Source, Political Consumerism, how communication and consumption orients drive lifestyle politics. It kind of talks about just how like the media, back then it would be TV, but now in more updated terms, it'd be like TikTok and Instagram and all that. And it like influences what people buy, especially with like the constant ads that you were talking about. And it just reminds me that like it really did push a lot of like consumer habits.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of consumer habits, did you know that marketers have broken down consumer behavior into 4 sections? We have the loyal customer who has a strong attachment to brands and consistently chooses their products. We have the new customer, which is obviously purchasing the brand for the first time. Discount customers, which are just customers that are always looking for discounts or purchases when it's on sale. And then impulse customers. Second to loyal customers only in generation of sales and revenue, just because, they're impulse customers. They always buy out of impulse. Have you guys bought anything out of impulse?
Oh, yeah. As me and Julie were talking, like, we fell victims to all of the microtrends that were going on. Or to this day, I feel like microtrends are even getting worse.
Yeah.
And I feel like that part, it's like the government and these big corporations, they are basically the first thing you will open your phone to these days is an ad for something like a pair of clothes or like a pair of shoes, just anything. Like everything is being so highly marketed to the younger audience and just this new generation.
Yeah. Do you think like the government should play like a bigger role in like making new legislation to maybe prevent some of that?
I do think so. I mean, that would be ideal, but also, we do live in a capitalistic country, so how realistic would that be for that censorship to, be implemented? But that would be something that would be nice, for the environment and just overall economically. It would be nice to have that censorship, but I don't see it being realistic, but that's a good idea.
Well, the government may not be doing anything, but there has been that, I don't want to say trend, but that movement where Amazon gets boycotted on certain days and other companies get boycotted.
Right.
I think there's like Nestle and like Amazon and I think maybe even Target, but a lot of the large corporations that, are getting help from the government and just like, don't need it, have like, there's like almost like a calendar somewhere that's like scheduled boycotts for specific days. And surprisingly enough, I found that out through my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sebastian. And moving along, it's clear that 9/11 didn't just change security policies, it fundamentally altered how we think about spending and consumption, from increased caution in financial decisions to the way corporations market their products. Those ripple effects that we saw are still very much visible today.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I also think that understanding these shifts, can probably help us understand patterns of consumer behavior.
Yeah.
Right after major global events like 9/11 and also more recently with the COVID-19 pandemic. It makes us ask how much of our spending is shaped by emotion, fear, or external influence. And I think that's just something people should keep in mind.
Yeah, it, like you said, it makes us ask how much of our spending is shaped by emotion, fear, or external influence. That's a great question. I think we could leave our listeners with. Thanks to Sebastian for his insights, and thanks to everyone tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and tell us what's the time you bought something just to feel a little bit safer. We'll see you next time on Behind the Purchase.